The winter wind cut through Dust Creek, Wyoming territory, like a blade through frozen flesh. It was Christmas Eve, 1887, and the world had turned cruel. Snow fell in heavy curtains, blanketing the narrow dirt road that led into town. The wooden buildings stood silent beneath a pale gray sky, their windows dark, their porches shuttered against the merciless cold. Wind swept through the empty street, whistling between the boards, slicing through coat and skin alike. On that road, a woman walked alone. Her name was Anna Morrison. She was 28 years old, and she had lost everything. Her head bowed beneath a threadbare shawl, her thin coat doing nothing against the wind that cut through the fabric like it wasn't even there. Her dress, once of respectable brown wool, was now torn at the hem, stained with mud and road dust. Her boots, worn through at the soles, left bloody prints in the snow. In her arms, she clutched a fraying canvas sack. Inside were three things: a dented Lodge No. 8 cast iron pot, manufactured in 1880, a dull Russell Green river paring knife, a wooden spoon she had carved herself from applewood. Everything else was gone. The house, the land, even her mother's wedding quilt. 2 months ago, her husband had died. David Morrison had been 30 years old, a blacksmith by trade, a dreamer by nature. He had worked hard, smiled often, and borrowed more than he could ever repay. Anna had not known about the debts. David had kept them hidden, tucked away in ledgers she never saw, signed on papers with ink that might as well have been blood. It happened on a Thursday in October. David had been transporting a 200-pound anvil by wagon from Fort Collins to a customer in the mountains. The road was steep. The wagon wheel hit a rock. The load shifted. The anvil tipped. It crushed him against the side of the wagon bed, breaking his ribs, puncturing his lungs. By the time a passing miner found him 3 hours later, David was cold. His money pouch, containing $340, had fallen into the Big Thompson River and was never recovered. Anna buried him on a Tuesday. The sky had been gray. The preacher's words had been brief. She had stood at the graveside in her black dress, her hands folded, her eyes dry. She had not cried, not because she didn't love him, but because the tears wouldn't come. Not yet. 3 days after the funeral, they came to her door. Morrison Teague, the man who owned the mercantile in Fort Collins, the man who had smiled at their wedding and given them a set of tin plates as a gift. He stood on her porch with folded papers in his hand and Deputy Marshal Williams beside him. His face was hard. His voice was harder. "Mrs. Morrison," he said, "your husband owed me $650. He took out a loan in June to open his own smithy, put up your house and land as collateral. I'm here to collect." Anna had stared at him, at the papers, at the signature that looked like David's but couldn't be real. "He never told me," she whispered. "I didn't know about any loan." Teague shrugged. "Doesn't matter what you knew, ma'am. Matters what's legal. These papers are filed with the county. The debt is valid. You have 2 hours to clear out." Anna had looked at Deputy Marshal Williams. "Surely there's some mistake. Surely you can give me time to figure this out." Williams had shifted his weight, uncomfortable. His hand rested on his gun belt. "Ma'am, the law's the law. Mr. Teague has every right to the property. I'm sorry. 2 hours." Anna had walked back into the house she had called home for 3 years. She had looked at the furniture David had made, the rocking chair, the bookshelf, the table where they had eaten every meal together. She had looked at the quilt on the bed, the one her mother had sewn by hand, every stitch a prayer. She had looked at the framed photograph on the mantel, their wedding day. David in his Sunday suit, Anna in her white dress holding a bouquet of wildflowers. She touched each thing, memorized them, tried to press them into her mind so she would never forget. Then she walked into the backyard and built a small fire. She fed her wedding dress to the flames first. The white lace caught quickly, curling and blackening, turning to ash. She couldn't take it with her, and she couldn't bear the thought of Morrison Teague selling it to someone else, some other bride wearing the dress that had once meant everything. When the fire died, she packed her sack. 3 things: the pie, the knife, the spoon. That was all she could carry. That was all they had left her. She walked out the front door without looking back. Teague was waiting on the porch, pocket watch in hand. 2 hours on the dot, he said. Then he walked inside like he owned the place. Because now he did. Anna had $4.50 in her pocket, enough for a week's food maybe. if she was careful. She walked north, away from Fort Collins, away from the grave where David lay, away from everything she had ever known. She walked for 2 days, slept in a barn one night, paid the farmer a quarter for the privilege, slept under a bridge the second night, shivering in the dark, listening to the sound of water running beneath her. By the third day she reached Dust Creek. It was Christmas Eve. The snow was falling hard. The wind howled through the empty streets. Anna's stomach was empty. Her hands were numb. Her feet were bleeding inside her ruined boots. She knocked on the first door she saw. It belonged to Widow Crowley, a woman in her 60s who lived alone in a narrow house on the edge of town. Anna knocked softly, her knuckles stiff and painful from the cold. She saw movement behind the lace curtain, a shadow passing, a flicker of lamplight, then silence. Anna knocked again, harder this time. "Please," she whispered, "I just need a little help." The door opened 3 inches. A brass chain lock held it in place. Widow Crowley's face appeared in the gap, lined and suspicious. Her eyes were hard. Her mouth was a thin line. "We don't feed beggars," the widow said. Her gaze swept over Anna's torn coat, her muddy hem, her cracked hands. "Try the church, if it's open." "But ma'am," Anna began. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked into place. Anna stood there for a long moment, staring at the painted wood. Through the window she could see the dining room. A plate of roast chicken sat on the table, half eaten. Steam still rose from it. Her mouth watered, her stomach twisted with hunger. She turned away. The second door belonged to Henrik Peterson, a Swedish immigrant who owned the general store. He was a good man, people said. Fair in his dealings, honest with his prices. Anna found him at the back of his shop, sliding a thick wooden bolt across the door to lock up for the night. "Sir," Anna said, her voice barely above a whisper, "please, I can work for food. I can sweep, clean, cook, anything you need." Peterson turned to look at her, his face softened. His eyes were kind, but his answer was not. "I'm sorry, miss," he said. "I've got 2 sons who need work themselves. Hard times for everyone right now. I wish I could help." "Please," Anna said again. "I haven't eaten in 2 days." Peterson reached into his pocket and pulled out a dime. He pressed it into her hand. "Get yourself some bread," he said. "But I can't offer more than that." Anna closed her fingers around the coin. "Thank you," she whispered. Peterson nodded and walked away, his boots crunching in the snow. Anna looked down at the dime in her palm. It gleamed dully in the fading light. 10 cents. Enough for a loaf of bread, maybe. But the store was closed, and tomorrow was Christmas. Everything would be closed. She felt something crack inside her chest, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet break, like ice splintering under too much weight. The third door was the Methodist church. Anna climbed the stone steps slowly. Her legs shook with exhaustion. Her breath came in short, painful gasps. She reached for the brass handle and pulled. The door was locked. A wooden sign hung from a nail. Hand-painted letters, slightly crooked. Christmas service canceled. Pastor Hendricks visiting family in Laramie. Will return December 27th. Anna stared at the sign. Then she sank down onto the top step. Her legs simply gave out. Her back pressed against the cold stone of the church wall. She pulled her knees to her chest and wrapped her arms around them. She opened her sack and looked inside, counted what she had. 1 handful of dried beans, maybe 40 of them. 1 small garlic clove, withered and soft. A pinch of dried thyme wrapped in a scrap of cloth. A few grains of salt in the corner of the bag. That was it. That was everything between her and starvation. Anna sat there as the snow began to fall harder, as the wind picked up, howling down Main Street like a pack of wolves, as the light faded from the sky and the world turned gray and cold and empty. For the first time since David died, she wanted to cry, needed to cry, but still the tears would not come. They stayed locked somewhere deep inside, frozen solid, just like everything else. "God," she whispered into the wind, "if you're listening, just give me 1 more door to knock on. 1 more chance. Please." The wind answered with silence. Anna forced herself to stand. Her legs trembled beneath her. Her vision swam with hunger and exhaustion. She stumbled down the church steps, 1 hand on the railing to keep from falling. She made her way to the edge of the town square, where an old wooden bench sat beside the rusted frame of a broken wagon. The wagon had been abandoned years ago. Its wheels rotted, its bed collapsed, but the frame still stood, and beneath it, sheltered from the worst of the snow, lay a pile of dry wood scraps. Anna couldn't walk any farther. This was as far as she could go. She gathered kindling with numb fingers. Twigs snapped from dead branches. Handfuls of dry straw pulled from the wagon wreckage. A few strips of bark peeled from a fence post. She arranged them in a small pyramid between three flat stones. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a match. A lucifer match, the kind that struck on anything. She had three left. 3 matches between her and the cold. She struck the first match against the stone. It flared bright, the sulfur smell sharp in her nose. She cupped her hand around the flame and touched it to the straw. The fire caught, small at first, fragile. She fed it carefully, adding twigs one at a time, letting each one catch before adding the next. Slowly, painfully, the fire grew. When it was strong enough, she balanced her dented, cast-iron pot on the 3 stones above the flames. She packed the pot with clean snow, then added the dried beans, the garlic clove crushed between her fingers, the thyme, the salt. The snow melted, the water began to simmer. The beans softened slowly, releasing their faint, earthy smell. The garlic turned sweet. The thyme bloomed in the heat. It wasn't much, just water and beans and the memory of better meals. But as it cooked, a scent rose from the pot, something warm, something real. Something that spoke of kitchens and hearths and the hands of women who had cooked with love. The scent traveled on the wind, thin but persistent, weaving through the falling snow. And across the square, someone noticed. A figure emerged from the white. He moved slowly, steadily, his gait unhurried. He wore a thick wool blanket wrapped around his shoulders, the edges frayed and worn. Beneath the blanket, Anna could see a deerskin jacket decorated with beadwork. His hair was long and gray, hanging loose past his shoulders. His face was deeply lined, weathered by 70 winters. His eyes were dark and calm. He was Comanche. He approached the fire without speaking and knelt down on the opposite side, his movements careful and deliberate. For a long moment, he simply sat there watching the flames, breathing in the scent of the soup. Then he spoke. That, he said, his voice low and textured like old leather, is the scent of someone who remembers. Anna flinched. She pulled the pot closer, instinctively protective. It's just soup, sir. Just beans. The old man smiled faintly. His face creased into 1,000 lines. It's more than that. Anna studied him. His clothes were old but cared for. His hands, resting on his knees, were gnarled but clean. He didn't look dangerous. He looked tired, like her. Like someone who had walked too many miles and seen too many winters. She picked up her wooden spoon, the one she had carved herself. She dipped it into the pot and held it out across the fire. It's all I have, she said quietly, but you're welcome to it. The old man's eyes brightened. He reached out and took the spoon. He brought it to his lips and sipped carefully, letting the liquid sit on his tongue. His eyes closed. For a long moment, he said nothing. He simply sat there, spoon in hand, eyes closed, the steam from the soup rising into the cold air. Then he opened his eyes, and Anna saw tears on his weathered cheeks. My daughter cooked like this, he said softly, when she was still here, before the winter took her. Anna's throat tightened. I'm sorry for your loss. The old man handed the spoon back. He stirred the fire with a stick, nudging a log into place. The quiet between them opened gently, not uncomfortable, just full. My name is Gray Wolf, he said. I'm Comanche. Been in this territory 60 years. Seen a lot of winters, a lot of people come and go. Anna nodded. I'm Anna Morrison. You're not from here. No, sir. Colorado. Fort Collins. And now you're here. Anna looked down at her hands, red and cracked from the cold. Now I'm nowhere. Gray Wolf was silent. He pulled his blanket tighter around his shoulders and watched the fire. When he spoke again, his voice was gentle. What happened to you, Anna Morrison? So she told him about David, about the blacksmith shop and the dreams they had had, about the wagon accident and the river that swallowed the money, about Morrison Teague and the papers and the 2 hours she'd been given to pack her life into a sack, about the 3 doors that had closed in her face. She told him without crying because the tears still would not come. She told him because he asked, and because something in his eyes made her believe he would understand. When she finished, Gray Wolf stirred the fire again. Sparks rose into the dark sky. This town has no place for you, he said. Anna's heart sank. She had known it was true, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real. But, Grey Wolf continued, there might be one elsewhere. Anna lifted her head. Where? 12 miles northwest of here. There's a ranch in a valley, Red Hollow they call it, 640 acres. Good land, good water. The man who runs it is named Samuel Bridger. Anna's pulse quickened. Will he hire me? Grey Wolf shook his head slowly. He's a frozen river, that man. Been that way since his woman died 5 winters back. Since then, no one's been able to reach him. He works from dawn to dark, eats alone, sleeps alone, doesn't talk to anyone unless he has to, doesn't smile, doesn't laugh, just exists. Then why would he help me? Grey Wolf looked at her across the fire. Because you cook with memory. I tasted it in that soup, and a frozen river can thaw if the right warmth reaches it. Anna shook her head. I don't understand. You will. Grey Wolf reached into his blanket and pulled out a wrapped bundle. He unfolded the cloth to reveal a square of cornbread, still faintly warm. He pressed it into Anna's hands. You're shaking. From cold. From fear. Both will pass, but if you keep cooking from the heart, a door will open. Anna stared at the cornbread. Her hands trembled around it. Why are you helping me? You don't even know me. Grey Wolf's face darkened. His eyes grew distant. 22 years ago, he said, there was a storm, just like the one coming tonight. My daughter was 23 years old, a widow. Her husband had been killed in a fight with soldiers. She had nowhere to go, no family left to take her in. She wandered from town to town, knocking on doors, begging for work. He paused. The fire crackled between them. I found her 3 days after the storm ended, Grey Wolf continued, frozen under a cottonwood tree. She tried to build a fire but couldn't keep it lit. She died alone, cold, and no one had opened a door for her. His voice broke, just slightly, just enough. I won't make that mistake with you, he said. Anna's chest tightened. Thank you, she whispered. Grey Wolf pulled another bundle from his blanket. Inside were 8 matches, their heads dipped in wax to keep them dry, and a small leather pouch of pemmican, dried meat mixed with fat and berries. Follow the ridge north, he said. At dawn, you'll see a fork in the road. Take the left path. It's longer, but safer. The right path goes through Wolf Creek Pass. 3 men froze to death there last winter. Anna took the matches and the pemmican. Her throat was too tight to speak. Grey Wolf stood slowly, his joints creaking. He looked down at her one last time. When you get to Red Hollow, tell Samuel Bridger that Grey Wolf sent you. Tell him I said a frozen river can thaw. He'll understand, or he won't. Either way, you'll have tried. Then he turned and walked away. His shape faded into the falling snow, disappearing like a spirit into the white. Anna sat alone by the fire. The cornbread was warm in her hands. The matches and pemmican were solid and real in her pocket. The wind still howled. The snow still fell. But something inside her had shifted. Not hope, not yet, but the shape of it. She ate half the cornbread, wrapped the other half carefully, and tucked it into her sack. She kicked snow over the fire until it hissed and died. Then she stood, shouldered her sack, and turned north. The night was brutal. The temperature dropped to 15 degrees below freezing. The wind cut through her thin coat like knives. The snow fell so thick she could barely see 3 feet ahead. But Anna kept walking. She thought of David, of the way he used to smile when he came in from the forge, his face black with soot, his hands blistered. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Anna, he'd say. Don't ever forget that. She thought of her mother who had died of cholera when Anna was 16, her mother who had taught her to cook on a wood stove in Kansas, who had shown her how to knead bread, how to season stew, how to make something good from almost nothing. Food is love, her mother used to say. Never forget that. When you feed someone, you're giving them a piece of your soul. She thought of Grey Wolf's daughter, 23 years old, frozen under a tree. No one to help her. No door open. Anna would not be that girl. She walked through the night, stopped every half hour to stomp her feet, to keep the blood moving, ate a small piece of pemmican when her legs began to shake. kept walking. At dawn, the sky turned pale gray. The snow thinned, and through the white, Anna saw the ridge. She climbed it slowly, her lungs burning, her legs screaming. At the top, she saw the fork in the road. Just as Grey Wolf had said, she took the left path. An hour later, the valley opened before her. Red Hollow Ranch. It sat in a wide basin surrounded by bare cottonwood trees and split rail fences that stretched as far as she could see. The main house was large, built from thick logs chinked with clay, 2 stories tall with a stone chimney rising from the center. Smoke drifted from the chimney, gray and steady. 2 barns stood to the east, their roofs heavy with snow. One was massive, at least 80 feet long and 40 feet wide. The other was smaller, perhaps 40 by 30. A bunkhouse sat near the corrals, a chicken coop, a smokehouse, a small forge. This was not a failing ranch. This was a working operation. Successful, solid. Anna stopped at the gate. Her legs shook so badly she could barely stand. Her vision blurred. She had not slept in over 24 hours, had not eaten more than half a cornbread and a few bites of dried meat, but she had made it. She forced her legs to move, one step, then another, through the gate, across the yard, onto. The snow here had been trampled by boots and hooves. She could see fresh tracks leading to the barn. She climbed the porch steps, 3 of them. Each one felt like a mountain. She raised her hand to knock. The door opened before her knuckles touched wood. 2 men stood there, both tall, both broad-shouldered, both wearing heavy work coats and holding tin cups of steaming coffee. They stared at her like she was a ghost. The first man was in his early 30s. He had a long scar running down his right cheek, old and white. His eyes were blue, his mouth twisted into a grin. "Well, would you look at this?" he said. His voice was loud, amused. "Santa drop you off, miss?" The second man, younger with a red beard, laughed. "This ain't no poorhouse, lady. Boss doesn't run a charity." Anna swayed on her feet. Her vision swam. Black spots danced at the edges. She locked her knees to keep from falling. "I ain't asking for charity," she said. Her voice came out thin and shaky. "I can work." The first man snorted. "Work?" He looked her up and down. "You look like one good gust would blow you clear to Nebraska." Anna's hands tightened on the strap of her sack. "I can cook." The laughter stopped. The 2 men glanced at each other. The grin faded from the scarred man's face. He opened his mouth to say something, but a sound stopped him. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Boot heels on wooden floorboards. The kind of walk that didn't hurry, didn't hesitate, just moved with the certainty of a man who didn't ask permission for anything. A third man appeared in the doorway. He was tall, well over 6 feet, broad across the shoulders, solid through the chest. He wore denim Levi's, dark blue and worn at the knees, a flannel shirt, blue-gray unbuttoned at the collar, a leather vest, unadorned. His hair was dark brown streaked with silver gray. His jaw was covered in 4 days of stubble. His eyes were pale blue-gray, the color of ice on a frozen lake. He looked at Anna, not at her face, past her, through her, like she wasn't really there, like she was just another piece of the landscape. "You cook?" His voice was low, flat, empty of everything. "Yes, sir," Anna said. "Where?" "Wanna? Colorado. Fort Collins." "For who?" Anna hesitated. The lie came without thought. "My husband, he ran a blacksmith shop. Small crew. 6 men. The man's eyes flicked to hers. Just for a second. A sharp, assessing look. Then away again. "You're lying," Anna's breath caught. I asked where you cooked. You said Colorado, but your eyes went left when you said it. That means you're remembering something different than what you're saying. So either you cooked somewhere else or you didn't cook for a crew at all." Anna swallowed hard. Her throat was dry. Her heart pounded. "I cooked for my husband, just him. But I learned from my mother. She fed harvest crews in Kansas, 30 men at a time." The man studied her. His face gave nothing away. "Truth is cheaper than lies out here." "Yes, sir." Another long silence. Anna's legs trembled, her vision blurred. She was going to faint. She knew it. Any second now, she was going to collapse right here on this porch. "7 days, the man said. Anna blinked. Sir, 7 days to prove you're worth the food you eat. You cook breakfast, lunch, dinner. 8 men plus me, ma'am. If they work better, you stay. If not, you leave on the 8th morning. Anna forced herself to stand straighter. Yes, sir, you have my word. The man's gaze returned to her face. One more thing. Yes, sir. Don't ask about my wife. Don't touch anything in my study. Don't expect me to eat at your table. I take meals alone in my office. Anna nodded. I understand, Mr. Bridger. The man's jaw tightened. Just Samuel. Or Sam. Mr. Bridger died with my father in '79. Yes, sir. Samuel turned to the two ranch hands. Show her the kitchen. Give her the back room. It's empty. The scarred man nodded. Yes, sir. Samuel walked away, down the hall, into the shadows. A door closed somewhere in the house. The scarred man looked at Anna. His grin was gone. His face was serious now. Come on, miss. I'll show you around. Anna followed him inside. Her legs barely held her. The hallway was dim and cold. The floorboards creaked under her feet. The walls were bare logs, dark with age and smoke. They passed a sitting room, a fireplace, unlit, two chairs covered in dust. They passed a stair leading up to the second floor. They passed a closed door with a brass handle. That's the boss's study, the scarred man said. Don't go in there, ever, Anna nodded. At the end of the hall, the man pushed open a door. Kitchen's here. Anna stepped inside. It was a large room, 20 feet by 15. A massive cast iron stove dominated one wall. A majestic range, 6 burners, 2 ovens, a water reservoir on the side. The kind of stove a serious cook would dream about. But it was cold. The burners were crusted with old grease. The ovens were caked with ash. A long wooden table ran down the center of the room, 8 feet long, scarred and stained. Tin plates stacked at one end, cups hanging from hooks, a water pump over a deep stone sink. The room smelled of dust and neglect. Your room's through here, the man said. He led her to a narrow door at the back of the kitchen. The room was small, 10 feet by 8, a narrow iron bed frame with a thin mattress and a single wool blanket, a wooden chair, a small table, a window covered with oiled paper. The man set a candle on the table and lit it. Kitchen's got everything you need. Root cellars outside through the back door. Bunkhouses across the yard if you need one of us. Thank you, Anna said. Her voice was barely a whisper. The man nodded. He paused at the door. Name's Tom McKenna. I'm the foreman here. Anna Morrison. Tom studied her for a moment. His eyes were kind. Don't mind the boss, Miss Morrison. He's been frozen since December 5 years back, since his wife died. But he's not a bad man, just a broken one. Anna nodded. She couldn't speak. Get some rest, Tom said. You look like you're about to drop. He left. The door closed softly. Anna stood alone in the small room. She set her sack on the floor. She sat on the bed. The mattress was lumpy and thin, but it was the first bed she had slept in since leaving Fort Collins. She lay back, closed her eyes, and for the first time in 2 months, she slept. She woke 3 hours later to the sound of voices outside. Men's voices, rough and loud. She sat up, disoriented. For a moment, she didn't know where she was. Then it came back. Red Hollow, Samuel Bridger, 7 days. She stood and splashed cold water on her face from a pitcher on the table, tied her hair back, straightened her dress as best she could, tied her apron. Then she walked into the kitchen. It was time to cook. Anna stood in the cold kitchen and surveyed what she had to work with. The majestic range stove was magnificent, even covered in grime. 6 burners, 2 ovens, a water reservoir that could hold gallons once heated. This was a stove built for serious cooking, built for feeding crews, built for a woman who had once cared about such things. But that woman was gone. Anna rolled up her sleeves. First, she needed fire. She found kindling in a wooden box near the stove, newspaper from 1886, strips of bark, small twigs. She arranged them in the firebox and struck one of Grey Wolf's matches. The flame caught. She fed it carefully, adding larger pieces of split oak until the fire roared. While the stove heated, Anna scrubbed. She found a stiff, bristled brush under the sink and a bar of harsh lye soap. She filled a bucket with water from the pump and went to work. She scrubbed the stovetop until the cast iron gleamed black. She scraped old grease from the burners with her knife. She cleaned the ovens, hauling out pans full of ancient ash. She scrubbed the long wooden table until her hands were raw, scrubbed the floor on her hands and knees, washed every tin plate and cup. By the time she finished, her back ached and her fingers were red and cracked. But the kitchen looked different. It looked cared for. She explored the root cellar next. It was through a door at the back of the kitchen, down 6 wooden steps into a cool, dark space carved into the earth. The walls were lined with shelves, and those shelves were stocked. Potatoes, at least 2 bushels, still firm. Onions, a full bushel. Carrots, maybe 20 pounds. A barrel of salted beef. Sacks of flour and cornmeal, 50 pounds each. A crate of eggs. 2 pounds of butter wrapped in cloth. A quart jar of milk from that morning. Dried beans, dried apples. A tin of coffee beans. Jars of preserves, their contents dark and mysterious. This was not a poor ranch. This was a place that had money, that had resources, but no one to cook them properly. Anna decided what to make. It was late afternoon now, nearly 4 o'clock. The men would be hungry. They would expect supper soon. She would make cornbread, fried bacon with red wine onions, scrambled eggs, strong coffee, simple food, but made with care. She started with the cornbread, mixed 2 cups of cornmeal with 1 cup of white flour in a large ceramic bowl, added a tablespoon of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt. In a separate bowl, she cracked 2 eggs and beat them with a fork. Added a cup and a half of milk, 3 tablespoons of honey from a jar she found in the pantry, and a 1/4 cup of melted lard. She combined the wet and dry ingredients, stirring just until blended. Over-mixing would make the bread tough. She had learned that from her mother. Always mix with a light hand, Anna. Treat the batter like it's something precious. She greased her cast iron skillet, the one from her sack, with a thin layer of lard, poured in the batter, slid it into the oven. 375 degrees, she estimated, based on how the air shimmered when she held her hand inside. While the cornbread baked, she worked on the bacon. She found a thick slab of it in the cold cellar, salt-cured and smoked. She sliced it into 16 pieces, each about a 1/4 inch thick, laid them in a large cast iron skillet and set it over medium heat. The bacon began to sizzle almost immediately. The fat rendered out, pooling clear and golden at the bottom of the pan. The smell filled the kitchen. Rich, savory, the smell of home. She turned the bacon after 4 minutes. Let it cook another 4 minutes on the other side. When it was crisp and brown, she lifted it out with a fork and set it on a plate. Left 2 tablespoons of the bacon fat in the pan. She sliced 2 large red onions into thin half-moons, added them to the hot bacon fat. They sizzled and steamed. She stirred them with her wooden spoon, letting them cook slowly until they turned soft and golden, their edges just beginning to caramelize. Added a teaspoon of brown sugar to help them along. For the eggs, she cracked a dozen into a bowl, added a splash of milk and a good pinch of salt. Beat them until they were pale yellow and slightly frothy. Melted a tablespoon of butter in a clean skillet. Poured in the eggs and stirred gently with her spoon, pushing them around the pan, letting them form soft, fluffy curds. Took them off the heat while they were still slightly wet. They would finish cooking from their own heat. The coffee was last. She found a bag of Arbuckle's coffee, the kind that came pre-roasted, popular across the West. She ground a cupful in a hand mill, the crank squeaking with each turn. Put the grounds in a large pot with a gallon of water, brought it to a boil. Let it boil for 10 minutes. Added an eggshell to help the grounds settle. The cornbread came out of the oven golden brown, the edges crisp, the center tender. She brushed the top with melted butter and let it rest. By the time the men filed in from the yard, the kitchen was transformed. The table was set, the food was ready. The air was thick with the smell of butter and bacon and fresh baked bread, the smell of someone who cared. The men stopped at the doorway, all 8 of them. They stood in a cluster, stomping snow from their boots, staring. Tom McKenna was first, the foreman, the one who had shown Anna to her room. 38 years old, weathered face, kind brown eyes. Behind him came the others, Jack Morrison, the one with the scar. 32, tall and broad, the one who had mocked her that morning. Lyle Dutton, 28, red-bearded, quick to laugh, quick to judge. Clay Anderson, 45. Black skin, a large scar across his right cheek. Eyes that had seen hard things. Wade Cooper, 24. Blonde hair, blue eyes. The youngest of the crew, Brett Hollis, 26. Short and muscular. A face that looked perpetually angry. Carl Jennings, 30. Black beard. A smile that made Anna uncomfortable. And old Cy Murphy, 62. Gray-haired, limping slightly, the oldest hand on the ranch. They stood there in silence. Then Jack Morrison stepped forward. He sniffed the air. His eyes widened. What in the name of... Clay Anderson moved past him to the table. He looked down at the food like he was seeing a vision. Good Lord have mercy, he muttered. Is that real? Tom smiled. Smells like my mama's kitchen 20 years ago. They sat down slowly, one by one, like men in a dream. Anna brought the food to the table. The cornbread, cut into thick golden squares. The bacon, piled high, the onions glistening on top. The eggs, fluffy and steaming. In a wide bowl, a pot of black coffee. Tom McKenna cleared his throat. Grace first, he said. The men bowed their heads. Some removed their hats. Lord, Tom said, his voice quiet and steady, we thank you for this food, for the hands that made it, and for the roof over our heads. Amen, amen, the others echoed. Then they ate. The silence lasted maybe 10 seconds. Then it broke. Groans of satisfaction. The scrape of forks on tin plates. The sound of men who had been living on burned beans and hardtack discovering what real food tasted like. Clay Anderson took a bite of cornbread and froze. He chewed once, twice. Then he looked up at Anna, his eyes wide and wet. Sweet Jesus on a Sunday morning, he said quietly. I thought I died and the angels were feeding me. Wade Cooper reached for a second piece, then a third. Ma'am, he said, his mouth full, if the boss doesn't keep you, we're all quitting. I swear to God. Old Cy Murphy ate in silence, but tears ran down his weathered cheeks and into his gray beard. He wiped them away with the back of his hand, but more came. This tastes like home, he finally said, like when my wife was still alive. Anna stood by the stove, her hands clasped in front of her, watching the meat. Her heart pounded, her hands shook, but she did not speak. She just refilled coffee cups when they emptied, brought more cornbread when the first batch disappeared. When the meal was nearly finished, Tom McKenna stood. He picked up a clean plate and began filling it. Cornbread, bacon and onions, eggs, a cup of coffee. I'll take this to the boss, he said. Anna nodded. She watched him carry the plate down the dim hallway toward the closed door at the end. Watched him knock. Heard a voice from inside, muffled but clear. Leave it. Tom set the plate on a small table outside the door and walked back to the kitchen. Anna turned away. She began washing dishes in the stone sink, her hands in cold water, her mind racing. In his study, Samuel Bridger sat behind his large oak desk. The room was dark. The fireplace was cold and full of ash. The only light came from a single oil lamp on the corner of the desk, its flame low and steady. Papers covered the desk. Bills, letters from the bank. A ledger book open to a page of numbers written in his own hand. Numbers that did not add up the way he needed them to. He had been staring at those numbers for an hour, trying to find a way to make $1,800 appear out of nothing, trying to find a solution that did not involve selling half his herd in the dead of winter. He set his pen down, rubbed his eyes. His head ached. His chest felt tight. Then the smell reached him. It came through the gap under the door, subtle at first, then stronger. Onions cooked in bacon fat, butter melting on hot bread, garlic and thyme and something sweet. Samuel's hands stilled on the desk. He stood, walked to the door, opened it. The plate sat on the small table. Steam rose from the food in thin, lazy spirals. He picked up the plate and carried it back to his desk. For a long moment, he just stared at it. The cornbread was golden, the edges dark and crisp. The bacon was perfectly cooked, the onions caramelized and sweet-looking. The eggs were soft and fluffy, not rubbery like the slop the men usually made for themselves. Samuel picked up a piece of cornbread, bit into it. He stopped chewing. The taste hit him like a blow. Warm, sweet, familiar in a way that made his chest ache. Margaret, She used to make cornbread every Sunday after church. She would stand at the same stove, flour on her apron, hair tied back, humming hymns while she worked. Her cornbread had never been this good. She burned it half the time, left it raw in the middle the other half. But she tried, God, she tried. And he had loved her for it. This cornbread was perfect, moist but not heavy, sweet but not cloying, the edges crisp, the center tender. Someone had made this with skill, with care. Samuel ate slowly, every bite. The bacon was salty and rich. The onions were sweet, the eggs were creamy. When he finished, he set the fork down and stared at the empty plate. His hand rested flat on the desk. His fingers curled slightly against the wood. Something inside him moved. Something that had been frozen for 5 years. Not melting, not yet, but shifting, like ice beginning to crack under spring sun. Tom McKenna returned 20 minutes later to collect the plate. He knocked softly. "Come in." Tom opened the door, saw the empty plate, saw Samuel sitting behind his desk, staring at nothing. "Boss, everything all right?" Samuel did not look up. "Tell her it was good." Tom smiled. "Yes, sir." He picked up the plate and turned to go. "Tom." "Sir?" Samuel's jaw worked. His hands were flat on the desk. "Just that. Tell her it was good. Just that." "Yes, sir." Tom carried the plate back to the kitchen. Anna was at the sink scrubbing a cast iron pan with salt in a rag. Her hair had come loose from its tie. Her face was flushed from the heat of the stove. "Boss says it was good," Tom said. Anna turned. Her eyes were wide. Her hands dripped water onto the floor. "That's all?" Tom grinned. "Coming from him? That's everything. He hasn't said a kind word about food in 5 years. Anna nodded. She turned back to the sink. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the pan. 1 day down. 6 to go. The next morning, Anna woke before dawn. She lay in the narrow bed for a moment, listening to the wind outside. Her body ached. Her hands were raw. But she had slept, really slept, for the first time in weeks. She dressed quickly in the cold room, tied her hair back, put on her apron, walked into the kitchen. The stove was cold again. She built a new fire, using the last of Grey Wolf's waxed matches. The wood caught quickly. Soon the kitchen was warming. She made breakfast. Pancakes from flour and buttermilk, fried eggs and butter, thick slices of bacon. Coffee strong enough to strip paint. The men came in at 6 o'clock. They sat down without speaking. Ate like men who had forgotten this kind of food existed. Tom took a plate to Samuel's study, left it outside the closed door. When Tom returned to collect the plate an hour later, it was empty again. After breakfast, Anna explored the ranch while the men worked. She walked through the yard, careful to stay out of the way. Watched them mending fences, hauling hay, checking the cattle in the lower pasture. When she returned to the kitchen around mid-morning, she found something that had not been there before. Her door, the one to her small room, no longer stuck. The hinges had been oiled. The frame had been sanded smooth. And on her table sat a small bundle of dried purple asters tied with string. Anna stared at the flowers, picked them up. They were brittle with age, but still beautiful. She walked into the main part of the house, found Tom in the hallway. "Who fixed my door?" Tom grinned. "Boss did it around 3 this morning. Heard him hammering and sanding." "Why didn't he just ask you to do it?" Tom shrugged. "That ain't his way, miss. He doesn't talk." "He does." Anna looked down at the flowers in her hand. "And these?" Tom's grin widened. "Found those himself, I'd wager. There's a patch of wild asters up on the ridge. Mrs. Bridger used to love them." Anna's throat tightened. She nodded, walked back to her room, set the flowers in a tin cup on her table. The days began to form a pattern. Anna woke before dawn, made breakfast, the men ate. Samuel ate alone in his study. Anna cleaned the kitchen, made lunch, made dinner. The men worked. Samuel worked harder than all of them. On the third morning, Anna was in the kitchen at 5 o'clock, brewing coffee, when she heard footsteps in the hall. She turned. Samuel Bridger stood in the doorway. He wore the same clothes as always: denim pants, flannel shirt, leather vest. His hair was uncombed, his jaw unshaven, but his eyes were alert. "The woodpile's wet from yesterday's snow," he said. His voice was flat. Factual. I'll have Tom move dry wood closer to the stove. Anna nodded. Thank you. The wet wood smokes too much. Samuel stood there for another moment. Then he spoke again. You said you cooked for crews in Colorado. Anna's hand stilled on the coffee pot. Yes, sir. But you didn't. Anna turned slowly, her heart pounded. No, sir, I didn't. Why did you lie? Anna met his eyes. Because I had nowhere else to go. And I thought a small lie was better than freezing to death in the snow. Samuel studied her. What did you really do in Colorado? I cooked for my husband, just him. He was a blacksmith. We lived in a small house in Fort Collins. He died. It was not a question. Anna nodded anyway. 2 months ago, wagon accident, an anvil crushed him, and you lost everything. Debt I didn't know about. The creditor took the house. Gave me 2 hours to pack. Samuel was silent. He poured himself a cup of coffee from the pot on the stove, poured a second cup, set it on the counter in front of Anna. Strong coffee helps, he said. At least that's what they told me when Margaret died. Then he walked out. Anna stood alone in the kitchen. She picked up the cup of coffee. The steam curled into the cold air. Her hands shook. He had not asked her to leave. That meant something. She did not know what, but it meant something. On the fourth morning, Anna found a small rug beside her bed. Burgundy wool, 3 feet by 4 feet. No one said anything about it. But Tom winked at her when she asked. Boss's grandmother made that in 1850. Been in storage since Mrs. Bridger passed. On the fifth evening, Samuel stayed in the kitchen after supper. He stood by the window, looking out at the darkening yard, a cup of coffee in his hand. The other men had gone to the bunkhouse. Anna washed dishes at the sink. Neither of them spoke. After 10 minutes, Samuel finally said, The draft near the oven pulls heat. I'll fix it tomorrow. Thank you, Sam. He nodded, walked out without another word. On the sixth night, Samuel came to the kitchen late, past 10 o'clock. Anna was preparing bread dough for the morning, letting it rise by the warmth of the stove. Samuel carried 2 split logs for the fire. He set them down, stood by the stove, looked at the covered bowl of dough. She used to do this, he said quietly. Prepare dough at night, let it rise by the stove. Wake at 3 to punch it down. Your wife? Anna asked gently. Margaret. Samuel's voice was rough. She'd wake at 3 in the morning to punch it down. Let it rise again. Have fresh bread by breakfast. She must have been a very good cook. Samuel laughed, a short, bitter sound. She was terrible. Burned everything. Bread, meat, coffee. All of it. Anna stopped kneading. Then why? Because it made her happy. Samuel turned to look at her for the first time in the conversation, and watching her happy made the burnt food worth eating. Silence filled the kitchen. Just the crackle of fire, the tick of a clock on the wall. I haven't talked about her in 3 years, Samuel said. Sometimes talking helps. Sometimes it doesn't. Either way is all right. Samuel's eyes held hers. You lost someone too. Your husband. Yes, but it's different. I was angry at him for leaving me with debt, for not telling me, for dying before I could yell at him. She paused. You're not angry, you just miss her. Samuel's jaw tightened. I'm angry. Angry she didn't listen. Angry I couldn't save her. Angry she left me here alone too. He stopped, turned away. Anna took a step toward him. Not close, but closer. You're allowed to be angry, Sam. Grief isn't just sadness. It's everything at once. Samuel said nothing. He stared at the fire for a long moment. Then he spoke again, his voice barely above a whisper. 7 days are up tomorrow. Anna's breath caught. I know. Samuel turned and walked to the door, stopped, did not turn around. Good night, Anna. It was the first time he had used her name. Good night, Sam. On the morning of the 7th day, December 31st, New Year's Eve, Anna woke early. She cooked the best breakfast she could manage. Beefsteak seared in a hot cast iron pan with butter and salt, eggs fried in the beef drippings, hashed brown potatoes with onions, fresh cornbread, baked apples with cinnamon and brown sugar for dessert. The men ate in silence, but when they finished, Tom McKenna stood. The others stood with him. Miss Morrison, Tom said, we know today's your last day, according to the deal. Anna nodded. She could not speak. We talked it over last night. All of us. Tom looked around at the other men. And we want you to know that these 7 days have been the best 7 days we've had in 5 years. Clay Anderson spoke next. Food's been better than anything we've eaten since Mrs. Bridger was alive. Wade Cooper added, and it ain't just the food, miss. The kitchen feels alive again. The whole house does. Old Cy Murphy's voice cracked. Feels like home. Tom looked at Anna. So if the boss doesn't keep you, we're prepared to take a vote. And if we vote you stay, that ought to count for something. Anna's eyes filled with tears. She wiped them quickly with her apron. Thank you, she whispered. That means more than you know. A voice came from the doorway. Tom's right. Everyone turned. Samuel Bridger stood there. He wore a clean shirt. His hair was combed. His beard was trimmed. He looked almost civilized. He stepped into the kitchen, stood at the head of the table. These 7 days have been different, Samuel said. He spoke slowly, choosing each word carefully. This place hasn't felt like this since before Margaret died. The men work harder, complain less, even smile occasionally. He looked at Anna. His eyes were no longer ice. They were something else, something warmer. And for the first time in 5 years, he continued, I walked into this kitchen this morning and didn't feel like I was suffocating. Anna's hands gripped the edge of the counter behind her. So I'm not asking you to leave, Miss Morrison. I'm asking you to stay. Not for another 7 days, permanently, as the ranch cook. $20 a month, plus room and board. Anna's voice shook. You mean I can stay? If you want to. Yes. Anna barely got the word out. Yes, I'll stay. The men erupted, cheering, clapping, stomping their boots on the floor. Wade threw his hat in the air. Clay laughed louder than she'd ever heard. Tom grinned like a proud father. Samuel did not smile, but his eyes softened. Welcome to Red Hollow, Anna. The men filed out, still talking and laughing. Samuel was the last to leave. He paused at the door. Thank you, he said quietly, for bringing this place back to life. Thank you for giving me a home when I had none. They looked at each other for a long moment, 3 feet of kitchen floor between them. An ocean of things unspoken. Happy New Year, Anna. Happy New Year, Sam. Then he was gone. 2 weeks into January 1888, life at Red Hollow settled into a comfortable rhythm. Anna cooked 3 meals a day. The men worked the ranch. Samuel oversaw everything with the quiet efficiency of a man who knew his land. Samuel began eating supper with the crew twice a week. He did not talk much, but he listened. And occasionally, very occasionally, something that might have been a smile would flicker across his face. One evening after supper, Samuel lingered in the kitchen. The other men had gone to the bunkhouse. Anna was washing dishes. Samuel sat at the table, a cup of coffee cooling in front of him. We married young, he said suddenly. She was 18. I was 23. Year was 1870. Anna dried a plate slowly. How did you meet? Her father owned the mercantile in Laramie. I was buying rope. She was working the counter. She smiled at me, and that was it. Love at first sight? Samuel almost smiled, more like inevitable. We courted 6 months, married that fall, 15 years together, 15 good years. Samuel stared at his coffee. We wanted children. Tried for a long time, never happened. So we poured everything into this place. She must have loved it here. She did, especially the horses. Samuel's voice grew quieter. She loved that mare. Lady, the one that was foaling the night she died. Anna dried her hands on her apron, came to the table, sat down across from him. Tell me what happened, she said gently. Samuel was silent for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was raw. There was a blizzard. December 24th, 1882. Christmas Eve. The wind was bad, worst I'd seen in years. Margaret wanted to move Lady to the big barn. The mare was due to foal any day. The small barn was old. The roof was weak. He paused, his hands curled into fists on the table. I told her not to go, begged her. The wind was too strong. But Margaret was stubborn. She said Lady needed her, said she couldn't let the mare die alone. What happened? Samuel's voice broke. The barn collapsed. I heard it from the house. Ran out into the storm. Couldn't see anything. Just wind and snow. I dug with my bare hands, with a shovel, with anything I could find. My hands froze, fingers cracked. I didn't care. Anna reached across the table. put her hand on top of his. I found her at dawn, Samuel continued, beneath a beam. Lady was dead beside her. Margaret's eyes were open, snow on her face. She'd been dead for hours. I'm so sorry, Sam. It was my fault. I should have gone with her, should have stopped her, should have. Anna squeezed his hand. It wasn't your fault. She made a choice, a brave choice, a stupid choice maybe, but hers. Samuel looked at their hands. He did not pull away. I've spent 5 years wishing I could go back, change it, save her. You can't, Anna said quietly. None of us can go back. We can only go forward. Samuel finally looked up, met her eyes. Since you came here, forward doesn't seem as impossible as it used to. Anna's breath caught. Before either could speak again, the door burst open. Tom McKenna stood there, face flushed, holding a letter. Boss, this just came from town, from the bank. Samuel's face went pale. He took the letter, opened it with hands that shook slightly, read it. His jaw tightened. What is it? Anna asked. Samuel set the letter down, pressed his palms flat on the table. A debt, $1,800, due February 15th. 4 weeks from now, Anna's heart sank. Can you pay it? Samuel shook his head. Not without selling half the herd. And if I do that in winter, we won't have enough breeding stock come spring. Red Hollow would be finished. There must be another way. Samuel stood abruptly. There isn't. I've checked, rechecked. There's no way. He walked out. The door to his study slammed. Anna looked at Tom. What debt? Where did it come from? Tom sat down heavily. Mrs. Bridger took out a loan 5 years ago, right before she died. She was trying to pay for medicine for her mother, tuberculosis treatment in Denver. The old woman died anyway, and Mrs. Bridger never told the boss about the loan. Anna stared at the letter on the table. The words swam before her eyes. $1,800, due in 30 days. Failure to pay will result in foreclosure of property. This couldn't happen. Not again. Not to Samuel. Not to Red Hollow. That night, Anna found Samuel in the barn. He sat on a bale of hay, a bottle of Old Crow bourbon beside him. His head was in his hands. Anna sat down next to him. They sat in silence for a long time. What did the letter say exactly, she finally asked. Samuel handed her the bottle instead of answering. She took a small sip. The whiskey burned. Margaret borrowed the money in 1882, Samuel said. She used the ranch as collateral. I never knew. She hid the papers. Probably didn't want me to worry. Thought she could pay it back herself, but she died, and the debt stayed. The bank sent a few letters over the years. I thought they were just about normal ranch business. Filed them away. Never opened them. Samuel laughed bitterly. Now they want their money, all of it, plus 5 years of interest. How much total? $1,800. Anna did the math in her head. That was more than 2 years of her wages, more than most men made in 3 years. What if we brought people here? She said suddenly. What? A feast, like the one at Christmas, but bigger. Invite everyone within 50 miles. Charge for plates. Show them Red Hollow is worth saving. Samuel shook his head. We'd never raise enough. What if we did more than food? Music, dancing, make it an event. Charge $5 per family. Samuel looked at her. Even if we got 100 families, that's only $500. Then we ask for donations too. Tell them the story. Some people might give more. Samuel studied her face. You really think this could work? I think it's worth trying. Samuel was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right, we'll try. They had 3 weeks. The next morning, Tom rode out to spread word of the feast. Clay and Wade repaired the big barn, replacing weak boards and reinforcing the roof. Jack and Lyle built long tables from sawhorses and planks. Old Cy and Brett split firewood. Anna planned the menu: roasted venison, stuffed turkey, mashed potatoes, red beans, cornbread, 15 different kinds of pie. 3 days before the feast, a man rode into Red Hollow on a spotted Appaloosa. He wore an expensive black suit and a wide-brimmed hat. His face was clean-shaven. His eyes were calculating. Samuel met him in the yard. Edward Carlyle, Samuel said. His voice was cold. What brings you here? Heard about your financial troubles, Edward said. He smiled without warmth. Thought I'd make you an offer. I'm not interested. Hear me out, Samuel. $1,000. Cash. Right now. You sign over the deed. Walk away with money and your dignity intact. Samuel's hands curled into fists. Red Hollow's not for sale, Edward. It will be in 3 weeks. Edward leaned forward in his saddle. Bank will auction it off. I'll buy it for pennies on the dollar. So why not take my offer now? Get off my land. Edward's eyes drifted past Samuel. Anna stood on the porch, a basket of laundry in her arms. That your new cook? Edward asked. Heard you hired some vagrant woman. That's Miss Morrison. And she's none of your concern. Edward grinned. Pretty thing. If you lose this place, send her my way. I could use a woman with domestic skills. Samuel took a step forward. His voice dropped to something dangerous. Leave now. Before I forget I'm a civilized man. Edward's grin faded. He pulled his horse's reins. 3 weeks, Samuel, then Red Hollow is mine. He rode away. Anna came down from the porch. Who was that? A vulture, Samuel said, waiting for me to fall. Anna's jaw set. Then we won't let him wait long. This feast will work, Sam, I promise. Samuel looked at her. For the first time in 5 years, he felt something like hope. On January 22nd, the storm came. It started as light snow in the afternoon. By evening, it was a full blizzard. Wind howled at 70 miles per hour. Temperature dropped to 25 below zero. Visibility went to nothing. At 8 o'clock, Tom burst through the kitchen door. Boss, South Cattle Barn, roof's lifting. 6 heads still inside. Samuel stood in his study doorway. Froze. Anna saw it happen. Saw his face go white. Saw his hands start to shake. Saw him look toward the door, toward the storm outside, and simply stop moving. She knew what he was seeing, not this storm, the storm from 5 years ago, the barn collapsing. Margaret crushed beneath the beams. Sam, Anna said. She touched his arm. Sam! He didn't respond. His eyes were fixed on something only he could see. Anna made a decision. She grabbed her wool coat from the hook, wrapped a scarf around her head, looked at Tom. Get the men. I'm going with you. Miss, you can't. The boss can't move. So I will. Now, go. She ran into the storm. The wind hit her like a fist. She staggered. Tom grabbed her arm, kept her upright. They ran toward the barn, 4 other men joining them. Clay, Wade, Jack, Lyle. The barn was listing 15 degrees to the west. The roof groaned. The walls shook. Inside, 6 pregnant cows bellowed in panic. What do we do? Wade shouted over the wind. Anna's mind raced. She had never done anything like this before, but she had watched her father work cattle in Kansas, had learned by watching. Tie ropes to the west wall, she shouted. Pull tight against the wind. Wade, Jack, dig out the back door. Clay, Lyle, help me move the cattle. They moved. Tom and 2 others secured ropes. Wade and Jack shoveled frantically at the snow blocking the rear exit. Anna and the others went inside. The cattle were terrified. They rolled their eyes and kicked and refused to move. Blindfold them, Anna said. Use feed sacks. They'll follow if they can't see the storm. It worked. One by one, they led the cattle out through the rear door, down to the lower pen. It took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of wind and cold and fear. Above them, the barn roof cracked. Out, Anna screamed. Everyone out now. They ran. The last cow cleared the doorway. 2 seconds later, the roof collapsed with a sound like thunder. Snow exploded. Beams crashed down. Anna fell into a snowdrift. Couldn't breathe. Couldn't see. Just cold and white in exhaustion. Then hands grabbed her. Pulled her up, Samuel. He knelt in the snow beside her, his face wild with fear. Anna, are you hurt? The cattle, Anna gasped. Are they safe? All 6, Samuel's voice broke. You saved them. You could have died. So could you. 5 years ago, but you're still here. Samuel stared at her. Then he pulled her to her feet, helped her to the house, wrapped her in blankets by the fire. The other men crowded in. Everyone was safe, frozen, exhausted, but alive. Later, when the others had gone to the bunkhouse, Samuel sat beside Anna in the kitchen. I froze, he said. Just like that night. I saw the barn and heard the wind, and I couldn't move. I know, Samuel's hand shook. I watched Margaret die because I wasn't fast enough. And tonight I almost watched you die because I was too weak to move. Anna turned to look at him. You're not weak, Sam. You're carrying a weight that would crush most men, and you're still standing. Samuel's jaw worked. He reached into his vest pocket, pulled out a folded piece of blue fabric. It was a scarf, faded blue wool, old, worn soft. This was Margaret's, he said quietly. She knitted it herself in 1881. Wore it every winter. Sam, I can't. She'd want someone who fought for this place to have it. Someone who reminded me I'm still alive. He placed it in Anna's hands. Are you sure? Samuel nodded. I've been holding on to Ghost for 5 years. Maybe it's time to let go. Anna wrapped the scarf around her neck. It smelled faintly of lavender. Thank you, she whispered. Samuel stood, walked to the door, stopped without turning. What you did tonight, he said. Margaret would have liked you. Anna smiled through tears. I hope I would have liked her too. Good night, Anna. Good night, Sam. The door closed. Anna sat alone by the fire, wrapped in a dead woman's scarf, and felt something shift in her chest. Not love, not yet, but the shape of it. The morning after the blizzard, Red Hollow was buried under 3 feet of snow. The sky had cleared to a hard, brittle blue. The temperature stayed below zero. Everything that could freeze had frozen solid. Anna woke early as always. She wore Margaret's blue scarf wrapped around her neck. It felt strange, like borrowing someone's skin, but also right somehow. Like Margaret had given her permission to be here, to take care of this place, to take care of Samuel. She made breakfast, oatmeal with brown sugar and cinnamon, fried salt pork, coffee so strong it could wake the dead. The men came in slowly, limping and sore from the night before, but they were smiling, joking. There was a lightness in the kitchen that had not been there before. Samuel came last. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching Anna move around the kitchen. She felt his eyes on her, but did not turn. Just kept cooking. He sat at the table with the men, ate with them, did not retreat to his study. When breakfast was finished, and the men had gone out to assess the damage from the storm, Samuel stayed behind. Anna washed dishes. Samuel stood by the window. The south barn is a total loss, he said, but the cattle are fine, thanks to you. Anna shook her head. Thanks to all of us. No. Samuel turned to face her. Thanks to you, you led them, made the decisions. I just stood there like a coward. You're not a coward, Sam. I couldn't move. I saw that barn and I was right back there. 5 years ago, digging through snow and wood, finding her body. Anna dried her hands, came to stand beside him. Grief does that. It ambushes you when you least expect it. Samuel looked at her. You wear her scarf well. Anna touched the blue wool. I'll take good care of it. I know you will. They stood together in the quiet kitchen. Outside, the world was frozen. Inside, something was beginning to thaw. 3 days later, on January 27th, the crew held an emergency meeting in the kitchen. All 9 of them sat around the long table. Samuel at the head, Anna beside him. Tom spread out the ledger books. We have 18 days to raise $1,800. That's the situation. Wade spoke up. How much do we have now? Samuel answered. $300 in the ranch account. Another 100 in personal savings. That's 400 total. Clay did the math. We need 1,400 more. Anna pulled out her notes. If we can get 150 families to the feast at $5 each, that's $750. Still short, Jack said. Then we ask for donations, Anna said. We tell them the story. Some will give more. Old Cy cleared his throat. I got $40 saved. It's yours, boss. Samuel shook his head. I can't take your money, Cy. Then consider it a loan. Pay me back when you can. One by one, the others spoke up. Tom had $70 saved. Clay had 30. Wade had 15. Even Brett and Carl, who rarely spoke kindly of anything, offered what they had, $20 each. When they finished, Tom added it up. That's another $200 from the crew, plus the $750 from the feast, assuming we get that many people. That puts us at $1,350, still $350 short. We'll figure it out, Anna said firmly. We have to. Samuel looked at her, then at his men, at the faces of people who were willing to give everything they had to save a place that was not even theirs. He cleared his throat. His voice was rough. I don't know what to say. Don't say anything, Tom said. Just throw a hell of a feast. Anna spent the next 2 weeks working harder than she had ever worked in her life. She woke at 3 in the morning, went to bed past midnight. Her hands were raw, her feet ached, her back screamed, but she kept cooking. She made lists, calculated portions, figured out how to feed 150 people with the supplies they had and the money they could spend. 3 roasted deer. Clay and Wade went hunting, brought back 3 bucks, each over 120 pounds dressed weight. 6 turkeys. Tom bought them from a farmer in Laramie, 12 to 15 pounds each. 50 pounds of potatoes, 2 bushels of carrots, 3 bushels of onions, 20 gallons of red beans. She started them soaking 3 days before the feast. 200 cornbread loaves. She calculated she could bake 50 at a time in the big oven. 4 batches. 8 hours of baking. 15 pies. Apple, pumpkin, cherry, pecan, and mincemeat. 3 of each. 5 gallons of coffee. She would brew it in shifts. Keep it hot all day. The men built an outdoor oven from stones and clay, big enough to roast the deer over open flames. Tom rigged a spit system with a hand crank. Clay kept the fire going day and night for 3 days, burning it down to perfect coals. They cleaned the big barn from top to bottom, swept out 5 years of accumulated dust and straw and bird droppings, scrubbed the floor planks, hung lanterns from the rafters, draped the walls with white cloth Anna had sewn from old canvas. Tom rode to every ranch, every mine, every homestead within 50 miles. He told them the story. Samuel Bridger's ranch was in trouble. Good man, fair boss. His wife's debt was going to take everything. Come to the feast, help if you can. People promised to come. Tom came back each night with a new count. 60 families, 80, 100, 120. On February 12th, 2 days before the feast, Edward Carlisle rode into Red Hollow again. Samuel was in the yard helping Wade reinforce the outdoor oven. He saw Edward coming and straightened. Edward dismounted, walked over with that same calculating smile. Samuel, still planning your little party? It's not a party, Edward. It's a feast. And yes, Edward looked around at the preparations, the barn being decorated, the outdoor oven, the stacks of firewood. He laughed. You really think this will work? You really think you can raise $1,800 from a bunch of broke ranchers and miners? I think it's worth trying. Edward stepped closer. His voice dropped. I've been talking to the bank, Samuel. They're willing to sell me the lien early for $1,500. Samuel's jaw tightened. What are you saying? I'm saying even if your feast raises the full amount, it won't matter. I'll own your debt by the time you try to pay, and I'll foreclose on the 16th anyway. That's illegal. Edward smiled. Is it? My brother-in-law runs the bank. Papers can be filed however we want them filed. This is business, Samuel, nothing personal. Samuel took a step forward, his hands curled into fists. Why do you want this place so badly? Water rights. Edward gestured at the valley. Red Hollow sits on the best aquifer in Wyoming territory. Control the water, control every ranch downstream. Simple economics. I'll fight you. With what? You're broke. Edward turned to leave. Then he paused. Oh, and Samuel, when I take this place, I'm tearing down that house your wife loved so much. Building something modern. Something that doesn't reek of failure. Samuel moved before he could think. His fist connected with Edward's jaw. Edward staggered back, hit the ground hard. Blood ran from his split lip. He looked up at Samuel with cold fury. You'll regret that, he said. He stood, brushed off his suit, climbed back on his horse. 3 days, Samuel. Enjoy them. He rode away. Anna came out of the house. She had seen everything from the kitchen window. Sam, are you all right? Samuel looked at his hand. His knuckles were bleeding. No, I'm not all right. That bastard is going to steal everything. Anna came down the steps, took his hand, examined the split knuckles. We'll clean this. Come inside. In the kitchen, she washed his hand with water and soap, wrapped it in clean cloth. Samuel sat at the table, his face dark with anger. He's going to take Red Hollow, Samuel said, no matter what we do. Anna finished tying the bandage. Then we make the feast so good that everyone remembers it. So good that when Edward Carlisle moves in here, he'll spend every day knowing he stole something beloved, something that mattered. Samuel looked at her. You really believe that? I believe we don't give up until it's over. Samuel caught her hand, held it between both of his. Anna Morrison. Where did you come from? Dust Creek, she said, remember? Starving and desperate. Samuel smiled, a real smile, the first she had ever seen on his face. Best thing that ever walked up my porch steps. Anna's breath caught. Sam. They sat like that for a long moment, hands joined, eyes locked. Then Samuel stood, released her hand. I need to check the barn. He left. Anna sat alone in the kitchen, her hands still warm from his touch. February 14th, 1888, Valentine's Day. The day of the feast. Anna woke at 3 in the morning. She had slept maybe 2 hours. Her body ached everywhere, but there was no time for rest. She lit every lamp in the kitchen, built up the fire in the stove until it roared. Began working. The deer had been roasting since the previous afternoon. Clay and Wade had been taking shifts, keeping the fire perfect. Now, at dawn, the meat was ready, falling off the bone. The smell filled the entire valley. Anna prepared the turkeys, stuffed each one with a mixture of dried bread cubes, onions, celery, chestnuts, thyme, and sage. Rubbed the skin with butter and salt. Arranged them in the big oven. 4 hours at low heat, basting every 30 minutes. While the turkeys cooked, she made the cornbread. Batch after batch, 50 loaves at a time. The kitchen became an inferno. Sweat poured down her face. Her hands were burned in a dozen places from hot pans. She didn't care. Tom and the crew took over the side dishes, mashed potatoes in 3 enormous pots, red beans simmering with smoked ham hocks, carrots roasted with brown sugar and butter. At noon, people started arriving. First came the Peterson family from Dust Creek. Henrik Peterson, who had given Anna a dime that desperate night, his wife and 2 sons. They brought $20 and a crate of apples. Then came families from the surrounding ranches, the Johnsons, the McLeods, the Ramirez family, the O'Connells, families Anna had never met, coming because Tom had asked them, because Samuel Bridger was a good man who deserved help. Miners from Silver Creek came in a group, 15 rough men with calloused hands and generous hearts. They had pooled their money, $100. The town doctor came, the blacksmith, the general store owner, the school teacher. At 1 o'clock, Widow Crowley arrived, the woman who had slammed the door in Anna's face on Christmas Eve. She found Anna in the kitchen, stood in the doorway with tears streaming down her face. Miss Morrison, she said, I'm so sorry. I turned you away. I was cruel. I was wrong. Anna set down her spoon. Came to the old woman. Ma'am, no? Widow Crowley pressed a cloth purse into Anna's hands. This is every penny I have. $23. I want you to have it. I want you to know I'm sorry. Anna hugged her. Thank you. That means everything. By 2 o'clock, 127 people packed into the barn. The tables groaned under the weight of food. The 3 deer carved into thick slices, the meat dark and rich. The 6 turkeys golden brown, steam rising when they were carved. Mountains of mashed potatoes, lakes of gravy, cornbread stacked in pyramids, beans in huge cast iron pots. 15 pies lined up on a separate table. The smell was overwhelming, intoxicating. People stood at the entrance and just breathed it in. Samuel stood at the head of the main table. He raised his hand. The crowd quieted. Friends, he began. His voice was rough. He had to clear his throat. Neighbors, thank you for coming. Applause. Quiet but sincere. 5 years ago, Samuel continued, I lost my wife. And for 5 years, I've been dead inside, just going through the motions, waiting for something. I didn't know what. The barn was silent. Then 2 months ago, a woman knocked on my door. She had nothing. No home, no family, no money, just a cast iron pot and more courage than any person I've ever met. He looked at Anna. She stood near the kitchen entrance, her apron covered in flour and grease, her hair falling from its tie, her face exhausted but glowing. She brought this place back to life, Samuel said. She reminded me what it means to care about something, to fight for something, and now we're fighting to save Red Hollow. He explained the debt, the bank, the deadline. His voice cracked once, but he kept going. So eat, he finished, enjoy, and if you can spare anything, we'd be grateful. But even if you can't, thank you for being here. Thank you for reminding me that community still means something. The applause was thunderous. People ate, and the food was extraordinary. Anna had poured everything she knew, everything her mother had taught her, everything she had learned in kitchens across Colorado and Kansas, into this meal. The venison was tender and smoky, the turkey was juicy, the stuffing perfectly seasoned. The potatoes were creamy and rich. The cornbread was sweet and crumbly. The pies were perfection. People cried while eating. Old men with weathered faces and hard lives sat with tears running into their beards. Women who had buried children, survived droughts, watched husbands die, sat and remembered what hope tasted like. This is what food can do, Anna's mother had told her once. It can carry memory. It can carry love. It can carry hope. After the main course, Tom set up a donation box on a table near the door. A simple wooden crate with a slot cut in the top. People began to give. A rancher with 3 daughters put in $50, and all he had saved for the winter. A widow with a homestead in the foothills put in $15, her entire pension for the month. The miners from Silver Creek added their 100. Families who had almost nothing gave $2, $5, whatever they could spare. And they kept coming. All afternoon, a steady stream of people filing past the box, dropping in coins, bills, checks written on scraps of paper. At 4 o'clock, a horse and rider appeared at the top of the ridge. Edward Carlyle. He rode down slowly, deliberately, like a king surveying his future kingdom. Samuel met him at the barn entrance. "Edward," Samuel said coldly. "Samuel." Edward dismounted, looked past him into the barn, at the crowd, the food, the laughter. "You've outdone yourself. What do you want?" Edward smiled. "I came to watch you fail, to see the look on your face when you realize it wasn't enough." The barn had gone quiet. Everyone was watching now, but Edward continued, "I made a mistake." Samuel's eyes narrowed. Edward stepped forward, raised his voice so the whole barn could hear. "I came here today planning to destroy something, but instead, I found something I haven't seen in 20 years. He paused, looked around at the faces watching him. "Community," Edward said. "People who give a damn about each other. I'd forgotten that existed." He reached into his coat, pulled out a folded check, handed it to Samuel. $500, Edward said, "and I'm withdrawing my offer to buy the lien." "Red Hollow is yours, Samuel. Keep it." Samuel stared at the check. "Why?" "Because." Edward paused, his voice softened. His eyes, which had been hard and calculating, now looked tired, old. "That cornbread Miss Morrison made reminded me of my mother. She died 10 years ago. Made cornbread just like that every Sunday. I never got to tell her I was sorry." He looked around at the faces watching him, at the families sitting together, at the old couples holding hands, at the children laughing. "Sorry for what, Samuel?" someone called out. Edward's jaw tightened. Sorry for choosing money over people, for spending 10 years buying land and water rights and calling it success, for having a big house with no one in it, for becoming so rich I forgot what it means to be human. He pulled out the check, held it up. "I came here today to watch Samuel Bridger lose everything, to buy his ranch for pennies, to control the water in this valley." He looked at Samuel. "And I was going to enjoy it." The barn was silent. "But I walked in here," Edward continued, his voice cracking slightly, "and I saw something I haven't seen in 20 years. Community. People giving everything they have to save a neighbor, not because they'll get anything back, just because it's right." He handed the check to Samuel. $500, and I'm withdrawing my offer to buy the lien. Red Hollow is yours. Keep it." Samuel stared at the check. "Why are you really doing this?" Edward looked at Anna, then back at Samuel. "Because I have everything, and you have something I can never buy. People who would come to save you if you fell." He turned toward the door, stopped. "And because that cornbread reminded me of a time when I was happy, before I became this." He gestured at his expensive suit. "Before I became empty." For a moment, no one moved. Then the barn erupted. Applause, cheers, people on their feet. Edward nodded once to Samuel, a gesture of respect between two men who had been enemies. Then he turned, walked to his horse, climbed into the saddle, and rode away without looking back. Samuel stood holding the check. His hands were shaking. Tom came over, clapped him on the shoulder. "Let's count it, boss." They took the donation box into the house. Anna, Samuel, and Tom sat at the kitchen table, emptied the box, sorted the money into piles. Bills, coins, checks. They counted twice to be sure. Tom wrote the final number on a scrap of paper. $1,420. Samuel stared at the number. Add Edward's 500, 1,920. They had done it, more than enough to pay the debt, with $120 left over. Samuel put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. Anna reached over, put her hand on his back. We did it, Sam. No, Samuel looked up. His face was wet. You did it. You saved Red Hollow. Tom stood, walked to the kitchen door, opened it wide. The sounds from the barn rushed in. Music, laughter, dancing. Boss, Tom called over his shoulder. They're waiting. Samuel wiped his face, stood, walked to the barn entrance with Anna beside him. The music stopped. 127 faces turned toward them. Samuel's voice was hoarse but loud enough. We did it. Red Hollow was saved. The barn exploded, cheering, crying, stomping that shook the rafters. Men threw their hats in the air. Women hugged each other and sobbed. Children jumped and screamed and didn't understand why the adults were crying and laughing at the same time. Clay Anderson lifted his fiddle, played the opening notes of a Virginia reel. The floor filled with dancers. Old Cy grabbed Widow Crowley and spun her in a circle. Wade Cooper tried to kiss the blacksmith's daughter and got his face slapped, but she was smiling when she did it. Samuel stood in the doorway watching, feeling the weight lift from his chest for the first time in 5 years, feeling the ranch breathe again. Then he turned to Anna, took her hand, led her back to the kitchen. Tom caught his eye as they passed, winked, closed the door behind them. Samuel and Anna sat alone at the kitchen table. The sounds of celebration drifted through the walls, muffled but joyful. Music, a fiddle, someone singing off-key. Anna, Samuel said. Sam, I need to tell you something. Anna waited. When you showed up on my porch 2 months ago, Samuel said, I was planning to die. Not right away, but eventually. I'd stop caring if I lived or not. This place was running itself. I was just occupying space. Sam, you don't have to. Yes, I do. Samuel turned to face her fully. You saved my life, not by cooking, not by running into that storm, by making me remember that life can still be good, that frozen rivers can thaw, that it's possible to feel again. Anna's throat was tight. I didn't do anything special. You did everything. Samuel reached out, took her hand. And I need you to know that I'm not asking you to replace Margaret. I'm asking you to be Anna, to stay here, to build something with me, if you want that. Anna's heart pounded. What are you saying? Samuel slid off his chair, knelt on the floor in front of her. From his vest pocket, he pulled out a small object wrapped in cloth. Unwrapped it, a silver ring, simple band, one small red garnet stone. This was my grandmother's, Samuel said. She wore it for 50 years, and I want you to wear it. If you'll marry me. Anna couldn't breathe. Sam, I'm not good with words. I'm broken in ways that might never heal. But I love you, Anna Morrison. I love your strength, your courage, the way you make burned bacon taste like the best meal I've ever had, the way you look at me like I'm worth something. His voice cracked. Will you marry me? Anna slid off her chair, knelt in front of him, took his face in her hands. Yes, she whispered, before you even finish asking. Yes. Samuel kissed her, soft, tentative, like he had forgotten how and was learning again. When they pulled apart, he slipped the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They sat on the kitchen floor, holding each other, while outside the barn rang with music and laughter. 1 year later, February 14, 1889, Valentine's Day. Red Hollow Ranch thrived. The debt was paid. The herd had grown. A new barn stood where the old South barn had collapsed. The house had been painted, the fences repaired. Everything that had been broken was being mended. Anna and Samuel had married in March of 1888, a simple ceremony in the barn. Tom had stood up for Samuel. Widow Crowley had stood up for Anna. The whole community came. Now, 1 year later, they held a smaller feast. Just the ranch hands and a few close friends. 30 people instead of 150. Intimate instead of desperate. Anna had help now. Two young women from town who came 3 days a week to assist in the kitchen. Anna taught them her mother's recipes, passed on what she knew. After supper, Samuel took Anna's hand, led her outside onto the porch. Snow fell softly. The air was cold but not bitter. The sky was clear. Stars blazed overhead. "I have something for you," Samuel said. He pulled out a wrapped package, handed it to her. Anna unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a scarf, deep red wool, brand new, hand-knitted. "Sam, this is beautiful." "I made it," he said. "Took me 4 months. Peterson taught me how. It's not perfect. I dropped a few stitches. But it's yours, not Margaret's, yours." Anna held the red scarf to her chest. The blue scarf Margaret had knitted was about letting go. This red scarf, made by Samuel's own hands, was about choosing her, about a love that was not a replacement, but a beginning. "Thank you," she whispered. Samuel pulled her close, one arm around her waist, the other holding her hand. They swayed slowly, dancing without music. Anna rested her head on his chest, heard his heartbeat, strong and steady. "I ain't got nowhere to go, sir," she whispered, "but I can cook." Samuel laughed, a real laugh, deep and genuine. "And I'm so damn glad you knocked on my door." They stood together in the falling snow, two people who had lost everything, two people who had found each other when they had nothing left to give but themselves. And it had been enough. Inside the house, Tom McKenna stood at the kitchen window, watched them dance, smiled. Old Cy came up beside him. "They gonna be all right, you think?" Tom nodded. "Yeah, they're going to be just fine." In the barn, the hands played cards and drank coffee and told stories. In the bunkhouse, the fire burned warm. In the corrals, the horses dozed. In the fields, the snow covered everything like a blessing. Red Hollow Ranch was alive again. 23 years later, winter 1910, Samuel Bridger sat in his favorite chair by the fireplace. He was 63 years old now. His hair was white. His hands shook slightly with age, but his eyes were still sharp, still kind. Across from him sat his grandson, Jacob, 12 years old, dark hair like his father, Samuel's eldest son, Thomas, curious eyes like his grandmother, Anna. Samuel and Anna had been blessed with 3 children. Thomas, born in 1889, now ran Red Hollow with his wife, Catherine. Then came the twins, Mary and Elizabeth, born in 1891, both married with families in Laramie. But it was Jacob, Thomas's boy, who loved the stories, who wanted to learn the old ways, who reminded Samuel of Anna that first morning, hungry and desperate but full of fire. The boy held a worn red scarf in his hands, the one Samuel had knitted for Anna 21 years ago. "Grandpa," Jacob said, "why do you always keep this scarf?" Samuel smiled. "Let me tell you a story." He told the boy everything, about Margaret, about the debt, about the woman who walked out of a blizzard on Christmas Eve with nothing but a dented pot and more courage than any person he had ever known. He told him about the 7 days, the feast, the storm, the ring. "And Grandma said yes?" Jacob asked. Samuel nodded. "She did. And we've been together 21 years since. Is Grandma still the best cook in Wyoming?" Samuel grinned. "Boy, she's the best cook in the whole damn country." The kitchen door opened. Anna came in, 61 years old now, her hair silver white, her face lined but beautiful. She carried a tray with 3 cups of hot cocoa. "Did I hear someone talking about my cooking?" Samuel stood, kissed her cheek. "Just telling the boy how you saved my life." Anna laughed. "And how you saved mine." She set the tray down. Ruffled Jacob's hair. "Come on, sweetheart. Help me make cornbread. I'll teach you how." "Can I, Grandpa?" Samuel nodded. "Go on." Jacob jumped up, followed Anna into the kitchen. Samuel stood alone in the sitting room. He picked up the red scarf, held it to his face. It still smelled faintly of Anna, of cinnamon and bread and home. From the kitchen came the sound of laughter. Anna teaching Jacob to measure flour, to crack eggs, to stir with a light hand. Samuel closed his eyes, remembered. A thin woman standing on his porch in a snowstorm. "I ain't got nowhere to go, sir. But I can cook." He had been so close to sending her away, so close to staying frozen forever. Thank God he had let her stay. Thank God for that one moment of mercy. Thank God for Anna. In the kitchen, Anna showed Jacob how to grease the cast iron pan. The same dented lodge number 8 pot she had carried from Dust Creek all those years ago. It was seasoned now, black and smooth, still perfectly functional. This pot, she told Jacob, saved my life. How? Because I used it to make soup for a kind old man named Grey Wolf. And that soup led me to your grandfather. And your grandfather gave me a home. She smiled. Never underestimate the power of a good meal, Jacob. Food is more than nutrition. It's love. It's memory. It's everything we are. Jacob nodded solemnly. I'll remember, Grandma. Good boy. They worked together in the warm kitchen. Anna's hands, now gnarled with age, guided Jacob's young, smooth ones, teaching him, passing on what her mother had taught her, she had taught Samuel, what would be passed down through generations. The cornbread went into the oven. The smell began to fill the house. Samuel came into the kitchen, wrapped his arms around Anna from behind, rested his chin on her shoulder. Jacob giggled. Gross. Samuel kissed Anna's temple. Never gross. This woman is the reason this family exists. Anna turned in his arms, looked up at him. And you're the reason I learned to live again. They stood like that for a moment. Then Samuel released her, sat at the table, watched Anna and Jacob work. This was what mattered. Not the land, not the money, not even the ranch. This, family, love, the passing on of knowledge and care and hope. A knock came at the front door. Samuel went to answer it. A young woman stood on the porch, maybe 25, thin, exhausted. Her coat was threadbare, her boots worn through. Sir, she said, her voice shaking, I'm sorry to bother you, but I'm looking for work. I can cook, I can clean, I'll do anything. Samuel looked at her, saw Anna from 23 years ago, saw desperation and courage in equal measure. He smiled. Come in out of the cold, miss. Let's get you some supper. Then we'll talk. The woman's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Samuel led her to the kitchen. Anna looked up, saw the woman. Understood immediately. She pulled out a chair. Sit down, dear. You look half frozen. The woman sat. Anna placed a bowl of stew in front of her. Fresh cornbread, hot coffee. The woman ate like she hadn't eaten in days, because she probably hadn't. Samuel and Anna exchanged a look. A lifetime of understanding passed between them. They would help this woman, give her work, give her a chance, pay forward what Grey Wolf had done for Anna all those years ago, because that was what you did. When someone knocked on your door with nowhere else to go, you opened it, you invited them in, you fed them, you gave them hope, you gave them home. Outside, snow fell softly over Red Hollow Ranch. The fields were white, the barns were quiet, the animals were warm and fed. Inside, the kitchen glowed with lamplight and the smell of fresh bread. Laughter rose and fell. Stories were told. Plans were made. Life continued, as it always had, as it always would. Anna Morrison Bridger stood at the stove, her grandson beside her, a stranger at her table being fed, her husband watching from the doorway with love in his eyes. She had come here with nothing. A dented pot, a broken heart, 3 items in a canvas sack. And she had built a life, a family, a home. The red scarf hung on a peg by the door. A reminder, a symbol, a promise that frozen rivers could thaw, that dead hearts could beat again, that it was never too late to start over. Anna smiled, turned back to her cooking. And Red Hollow Ranch, which had been saved by a woman who knew how to turn nothing into everything, warm ashes into roaring fires, despair into hope, continued to stand. A beacon, a refuge, a home for anyone brave enough to knock.